Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are doing something incredibly special for the Simplified Awakening community.
Yeah, we really are.
If you've been exploring ancient wisdom with us for a while, we usually stick pretty closely to the texts themselves. But today, because so many of you specifically asked for it, we are taking a slightly different approach.
A really fun approach.
Exactly. We are crashing those ancient texts directly into modern quantum physics.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. So if mapping the cutting edge of the subatomic realm into millennia-old philosophy is the kind of rabbit hole you enjoy, make sure you're subscribed to Simplified Awakening, Ancient Wisdom Decoded on YouTube, because we are getting right into it.
And it is quite a stack of sources we are working with today. We are pulling from the 108 Upanishads.
The heavy hitters?
Right, specifically the Chhandogya, Mundaka, and Prashna Upanishads. We're also integrating some framework from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And to bridge that gap between the ancient wisdom and the physical science, we are using the philosophical syntheses found in the complete works of Swami Vivekananda.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to even begin to understand how ancient sages might have been describing the exact same reality that, quantum physicists are currently measuring today, we first need to establish the baseline.
Yeah, we need to lay the groundwork.
Right. We need to talk about the core concept of Advaita, the illusion of separation.
The term Advaita is totally foundational here. It literally translates from Sanskrit as not two.
Not two.
Right, which we usually interpret in English as non-dualism. It's this philosophical realization that extreme dualism, the idea that you and I or you and the universe are fundamentally separate entities, is an error in human perception.
It's a glitch.
Basically, the texts argue, quite forcefully actually, that the ultimate reality is purely one.
I mean, it's a massive concept to swallow. I'm sitting here looking at a microphone, a table, and you. My entire daily life is built on navigating separate individual objects.
Of course it is.
So how did these ancient texts attempt to explain such a counterintuitive idea to people thousands of years ago?
They relied really heavily on vivid, relatable metaphors to break down that limitation of our daily perception. The Mundaka Upanishad, for instance, introduces this concept through the imagery of the two selves.
Okay.
It likens them to two identical birds sitting in the exact same tree.
Two identical birds.
Right. One bird represents the individual self, the
Uh-huh.
ego. And that bird is highly active. It hops from branch to branch, eating the fruits of the tree.
Doing bird stuff.
Doing bird stuff. And when it eats a sweet fruit, it feels joy. When it eats a bitter fruit, it feels misery. It is entirely consumed by the cycle of action and reaction.
That sounds suspiciously like normal human life.
Doesn't it?
Just chasing the good stuff, avoiding the bad stuff, constantly reacting to whatever's right in front of us.
It is the perfect description of the embodied human experience. But then the text points to the second bird.
The one just hanging out.
Yeah. This bird represents the universal self, or Brahman. And the second bird does not eat. It doesn't hop between branches. It is silent, majestic, and completely still. It simply watches the first bird.
So if the busy bird is our physical day-to-day self, what exactly is the silent bird? Is it supposed to be some sort of, external deity watching us?
Not external at all. The Prashna Upanishad expands on this beautifully. It explains that the busy bird is our embodied state, subject to pleasures, pains, and the physical environment.
Right.
But that silent bird is the unembodied self. It is pure, colorless, bodiless consciousness. It's the part of you that simply observes your life happening.
Completely unaffected by the bitter or sweet fruits.
Exactly. Unaffected. The busy bird and the silent bird aren't two different species. They are two aspects of the same existence, occupying the same tree.
There is another analogy in the source material that I think grounds this even further. It comes from the Ashtavakra Samhita.
Oh yeah, referenced in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika.
Right. It asks us to visualize a simple clay pot resting in an empty space. There's space contained inside the clay walls of the pot, and there is space outside the pot.
A very common everyday visual.
Yeah.
And naturally, our minds create a boundary. We label the space inside the jar as distinct from the space outside the jar.
Right. But the text asks, what actually happens when that clay pot breaks?
The space doesn't break.
Exactly. The space that was inside the jar isn't destroyed, it doesn't leak out, and it doesn't change its fundamental nature. It simply merges back into the infinite, undifferentiated space that was always there.
It's a great visual.
The point the text makes is that the space inside was never actually separate to begin with. It just had a temporary clay wall defining its shape for a little while.
What stands out to you about this? I mean, if you apply that metaphor to your own life right now,
Hmm.
the text is suggesting that our physical bodies, our egos, our localized identities, they're just the temporary clay pots.
Just clay pots.
They house the exact same universal consciousness, the same space that exists everywhere else in the cosmos.
Wow.
When the physical pot eventually breaks, that localized consciousness simply dissolves back into the infinite. It completely reframes the concepts of life, death, and individuality.
It really takes the pressure off the individual pot, that's for sure.
It definitely does.
But the listener brought us here to look at the mechanics of this. If there is only one unified space or consciousness, how did the ancient texts suggest this unity actually structured the universe we see today?
For that, we turn to the Chhandogya Upanishad, which introduces the mechanics of creation through the power of sound, or more accurately, vibration.
Okay.
It focuses on the syllable Om, referred to in the text as the Ugitha.
Most people recognize Om from modern yoga classes.
Yeah, usually chanted at the beginning or end of a session.
Right. But the text elevates into something much more foundational than just a calming sound.
It declares it the quintessence of the essences. According to the Upanishad, Om is the primal vibration from which absolutely everything was created.
Everything.
Everything. It permeates all words and all physical things, much like the structural ribs of a leaf permeate the entire leaf.
It was the underlying architecture.
Yes. And if you think about modern string theory, where the fundamental ingredients of reality are described as vibrating loops of energy, this ancient concept of a primal foundational vibration starts to sound remarkably familiar.
That ancient understanding of a unified foundation sets up the story of Svetaketu perfectly.
I love this story.
It's so good. Uddalaka, his father, is trying to explain this exact concept of fundamental unity to his son. Svetaketu has just returned from years of formal education, feeling quite arrogant about all the discrete facts he has memorized.
He thinks he knows it all.
Well, absolutely. So Uddalaka essentially challenges him. He asks if he learned about the one singular thing that makes all unknown things known.
Which is quite the trick question.
Right. And Svetaketu, realizing he only learned about the many and not the one, asks his father to explain.
Uddalaka's explanation is fascinating because he uses the process of a dying man to illustrate how the illusion of the many folds back into the one.
It's a very systematic breakdown.
It is. He describes a specific progression. When a person is dying, first their speech merges into their mind. They can no longer speak, but consciousness remains active in thought.
Okay.
Then the mind merges into the breath. Then the breath merges into the vital heat of the body. And finally, that vital heat merges into the Supreme Being.
It's a peeling away of the layers of human perception. The ability to communicate, the ability to process thought, the biological functions, all collapsing back into the original source.
And it is at the very end of this breakdown that Uddalaka delivers what many scholars consider the absolute pinnacle of Indian philosophy.
Here it comes.
He points to that ultimate subtle essence, the Supreme Being into which everything inevitably merges. And he tells his son, Tat Tvam Asi.
Thou art that.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Uddalaka is making a literal, not metaphorical claim.
That's a crucial distinction.
Very. He is stating, of all things, he is the subtle essence, he is the truth, he is the self, and that art thou. He is not telling Svetaketu that he is a small, important part of the universe.
He's not just a piece of the puzzle.
No. He is telling him that the consciousness looking out of his eyes is the exact same unbroken consciousness that birthed the cosmos.
Okay, I've been waiting for this pivot.
I know you have.
Because this idea that underneath all the apparent separation, there is only one unified reality is exactly where the listener wants us to bring in Swami Vivekananda and the physical sciences.
We are finally hitting the subatomic realm.
Yes, we are looking for the parallels.
Well, Vivekananda provides a brilliant bridge here. Writing in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, he observed the trajectory of modern science and pointed out a fundamental pattern.
A pattern in how we discover things.
Yes. He noted that all scientific inquiry is ultimately a search for unity. Chemistry, for example, seeks to understand complex compounds by breaking them down into simpler elements, with the ultimate theoretical goal of finding a single base material.
He argues that if a science ever actually finds perfect unity, its period of discovery essentially ends.
It has nowhere left to go.
Right. And he applies this directly to physics, suggesting that physics will stop progressing the moment it discovers the one single energy of which all other forces, like heat, magnetism, electricity, and gravity, are just manifestations.
Which is precisely what modern physicists call the unified field theory. The ongoing quest to find a single mathematical equation that elegantly unites all the fundamental forces of nature.
It's amazing he saw that so clearly back then.
He really did. Vivekananda saw that the physical sciences were searching outwardly for the exact same unity that the ancient yogis had searched for inwardly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Vivekananda doesn't just say science and religion are parallel paths.
No, he goes much further.
He explicitly applies the Vedantic concept of non-duality directly to physical matter. He states, physically this universe is one. There is no difference between the sun and you.
He calls it a fiction to say otherwise.
A fiction. He uses the analogy of an ocean, suggesting that you, the table, the sun, and the moon are all just little temporary waves in the midst of an infinite ocean of matter.
This is where we have to look at the specific physical conundrum Vivekananda highlights in the text, because it directly anticipates the modern scientific debate over quantum entanglement and non-locality.
The spooky action at a distance.
Exactly. He points out a flaw in classical materialist physics. Classical physics assumes the universe is made of separate, discrete atoms, but if one atom exerts a force on another atom at a distance like gravity or magnetism, how does it do that?
Classical physics says there must be a medium, a force carrier, a third atom or a particle traveling between the first two to deliver the message.
Right. But Vivekananda argues that this leads to a logical absurdity.
So
Well, if you introduce a third particle as a medium, you still have empty space between particle 1 and particle 3. How does the force cross that gap?
Oh, I see.
You need a fourth particle, then a fifth, resulting in an infinite regress. Therefore, he concludes, you cannot explain the interconnectedness of reality purely through separate, discrete pieces of physical matter.
You hit a wall.
You do. You are ultimately driven to metaphysics, to the realization that space and distance are not absolute barriers.
And this theoretical critique from Vivekananda is exactly what modern quantum physics proved with Bell's theorem.
Yes.
Classical physics said action at a distance was impossible without a hidden physical signal. But quantum entanglement shows us that two entangled particles, separated by light years, can instantaneously affect each other.
Instantaneously.
There is no time for a signal to travel between them. There's no medium.
They act instantaneously because, mathematically speaking, they are not two separate particles communicating across a distance. They share a single wave function.
They are the exact same system.
They are. The universe, at its most fundamental subatomic level, operates non-locally. The physical separation between the particles is fundamentally an illusion, which is the exact definition of Advaita.
Okay, I'm tracking with the wave functions, the unified ocean of matter, and the ancient texts.
Good.
But I have to ask the obvious glaring question.
Go for it.
If modern quantum mechanics and millennia-old Upanishads both agree that the universe is just one unbroken reality, why do I see separate things?
It's the million-dollar question.
Why do I perceive you sitting across from me? Why do I experience time passing? If it's all an illusion, how is the illusion so incredibly convincing?
That is the crucial question. To explain how the one appears as the many, Vivekananda introduces a rather elegant psychological equation in the text.
An equation.
Yes. He asks us to assume that the true, absolute, unknowable nature of the external world is X.
Okay, X.
And the true, absolute nature of our internal world is Y. The reality we actually experience every day is not X or Y. The external world we perceive is X plus the mind.
X plus the mind.
And the internal world we experience is Y plus the mind.
So the mind itself is acting as a filter or a prism that alters the absolute reality before we can even process it.
Precisely. And Vivekananda argues that X and Y are actually the exact same unified reality Brahman.
Wow.
The only reason we perceive them as different, the only reason we see multiplicity, separate objects in linear time, is because of the constituent elements of the human mind itself.
The text identifies these elements as time, space, and causation.
Yes. The profound claim here is that time, space, and causation do not exist out there in the absolute reality. They are the structural framework of the human mind.
They're our operating system.
Exactly. You literally cannot formulate a thought without relying on the concepts of time, space, and cause and effect. They act as a network or a veil thrown over reality.
So when the one existence pure unified Brahman passes through the human mind's network of time, space, and causation, it gets fractured.
It shatters.
It suddenly looks like many different things, like pure white light hitting a prism and splitting into a spectrum of distinct colors.
This is the Vedantic concept of Maya. It is frequently translated into English simply as illusion, but that's slightly misleading.
Illusion feels a bit cheap.
It does. A better translation is the illusion of limitation, or the appearance of the one as the many. And if we look at modern physics again, this sounds remarkably like the observer effect in quantum mechanics.
Where a quantum system exists as a unified wave of probabilities, everywhere and nowhere at once, until a conscious observer interacts with it.
Yes.
The moment it is observed, the wave function collapses, and reality is forced to take on a specific localized form in space and time.
Exactly. The act of observation through the mind imposes form on the formless. The Advaita tradition provides a brilliant classical analogy for how this mental projection works. The ghost in the dark.
I don't like this one.
Imagine a person walking down a road at night. In the darkness, there is a dead tree stump. A highly superstitious person walks by, their mind clouded by fear, and they project a terrifying ghost onto that shape. They run away in a panic.
Because to them, it is a ghost.
Right. Then a thief walks down the same road. He is carrying stolen goods, his mind clouded by guilt and paranoia. He looks at the exact same tree stump and projects a policeman hiding in the shadows.
Different mind. Different projection.
Finally, a person waiting to meet a loved one walks down the road, looks at the stump, and smiles, perceiving their friend waiting for them.
The essential question is, did the absolute reality of the tree stump ever change?
Not once. It was always just a stump.
But the apparent reality changed completely based on what each observer's mind projected onto it.
Exactly. The X in our equation was the stump. The mind added the ghost, the policeman, or the friend. This is the essence of Maya.
It's all projection.
The absolute reality Brahman, the unified ocean, never actually changes. It never truly fragments into a universe of separate, disconnected objects. We just perceive it that way because we are forced to look at it through the limiting lens of our own minds, bound by space, time, and causation.
It is a stunning, comprehensive theory of reality. But we need to bring this out of the theoretical realm and down to earth for the listener.
Fair enough.
If I accept that my perception of separation is just the observer effect collapsing a wave function, or Maya projecting a ghost onto a stump, why does understanding that actually matter to my daily life right now?
Because, according to these ancient texts, every single ounce of human misery stems from this specific misunderstanding.
Every ounce.
The root of all suffering is the idea of manifoldness, the false, deeply held belief in separation. We suffer because we believe there is a fundamental, impenetrable barrier between ourselves and others, between our nation and another nation, between humanity and nature.
We think we are the isolated clay pot, and we spend our entire lives terrified of breaking.
But the moment you realize the pot is just a temporary configuration, and your true nature is the infinite space itself, the foundation of that fear dissolves.
That's incredibly powerful.
The text states that whoever sees the same Atman, the same universal self in every being, and sees everything in that Atman has attained the ultimate secret. There is no more delusion for them. Where is there any room for misery or hatred for the person who actually sees this underlying oneness?
If you deeply comprehend that there is no fundamental difference between you and the person you are arguing with, or the world you are struggling against, the very basis for conflict collapses.
It vanishes.
It is all just the ocean interacting with itself.
The separation is quite literally a trick of the mind.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring all these incredible threads together. We started with the intention of exploring the parallels between ancient wisdom and modern science for the Simplified Awakening channel. And the convergence here is truly breathtaking.
It represents a profound unification of human inquiry across thousands of years.
Whether you are a theoretical physicist in a modern laboratory, looking at the mathematics of quantum entanglement and trying to solve the riddle of non-locality,
Right.
or whether you are an ancient yogi sitting in a forest thousands of years ago, meditating on the nature of Brahman, you end up walking completely different paths to arrive at the exact same inescapable conclusion.
The exact same.
You are not a tiny, isolated fragment of the universe navigating a cold, separate world. You are the entirety of the universe, expressing itself through a specific point in space and time.
Tat Tvam Asi. Thou art that.
It is the ultimate simplified awakening. I want to sincerely thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. If exploring Advaita through the lens of the subatomic realm shifted your perspective, please make sure you subscribe to Simplified Awakening. Ancient Wisdom Decoded on YouTube. Hit the like button on this video and share it with fellow seekers who love exploring the profound intersection where hard science meets ancient spirituality.
And as we conclude today's exploration, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, drawing directly from Swami Vivekananda's interpretation of this ancient philosophy.
Let's hear it.
He suggests that all of our ethics, all of our morality, and all the good we do for others in this world is simply an unconscious expression of our infinite oneness. It is the universe attempting to reassert its fundamental unity through our daily actions. So if this is truly the case, if helping someone else is literally just the universe helping itself, does a concept like unselfishness even truly exist? Or is the truest form of compassion simply the highest, most evolved state of recognizing your own reflection in everything around you?